What does the silence of a forgotten hobby sound like? It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet hum of maybe tomorrow. It's the scent of sawdust you almost forgot you loved. It's the weight of a tool that once felt like an extension of your hand, now sitting heavy and unfamiliar in your palm. For many of us, getting older isn't marked by a dramatic event. No sudden injury, no diagnosis that changes everything overnight. Instead, it's these quiet goodbyes. To the garden that feels too demanding. To the golf course that seems too far. To the garage workshop that once called to you every Saturday morning. We tell ourselves it's just part of the deal. The natural order of things. Our bodies slowing down. Our interests fading. Our world growing a little smaller each year. But what if it isn't? What if the silence isn't permanent? What if the goodbye doesn't have to be final? My name is Dr. Anya Sharma, and I'm what you might call a movement longevity scientist. I don't work in a sterile lab or a clinical setting. I work in the field, in the real world, studying how people in the world's blue zones maintain not just life, but vitality, well into their 80s and 90s. My work began with a very personal question. You see, my grandfather was a carpenter, not just any carpenter. He was an artist with wood. I remember the way his weathered hands would run along a piece of oak, reading its grain like a story. I remember the symphony of his workshop, the whisper of sandpaper, the satisfied thunk of a well-driven nail, the gentle scrape of a plane creating perfect curls of wood. But somewhere in his 70s, that symphony went quiet, not because of arthritis, though his joints ached, not because of his heart, though it had seen better days. The music stopped because my grandfather didn't stop loving. The feel of oak in his hands, his body simply stopped feeling capable of the conversation. That disconnect between desire and ability, between the spirit that says yes and the body that whispers, maybe not today. That's what I've dedicated my life to understanding. For decades, we've treated aging like a war to be fought. We talk about fighting wrinkles, battling decline, defeating time itself. This approach is exhausting, and frankly, it's wrong. You can't win a war against nature, but you can learn to dance with it. Your body isn't a machine, destined to break down. It's a garden. It responds not to battle, but to cultivation. When the flowers in your garden begin to wilt, you don't yell at them, you don't fight them. You check the soil, you adjust the water, you consider the sunlight. Today, we're going to check the soil. We're going to tend to your garden, and we're going to help you hear the music again. When we talk about tending to our body's garden, the first place most people look is protein. And for generations, that conversation has started and ended right here. Eggs are good. Don't misunderstand me. They're a perfectly decent source of protein, but they are not the gold standard we were led to believe. They are simply the standard, nothing more, nothing less. Here's what I want you to understand. Thinking eggs are enough to maintain your body's garden after 60 is like thinking a light spring rain is enough for a summer harvest. It's well-intentioned, but it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what your body actually needs. Let me show you what I mean. A typical egg gives you about 13 grams of protein per 100 grams. That's adequate. It's a decent foundation, but you can't build a strong house on just a foundation. Can you? As we age, our body's ability to process and utilize protein changes. Think of it this way. When you were younger, your body was like a high-efficiency factory. It could take raw materials like the protein in eggs and transform them quickly into muscle repair, energy, and strength. But as we get older, that factory slows down, not because it's broken, but because it needs different raw materials. It needs protein that's already been partially processed, pre-digested, if you will. It needs the nutritional equivalent of refined lumber instead of raw logs. This is why so many people feel like they're eating enough protein but still losing strength. They're giving their body raw logs when what it really needs is finished boards, ready to use. The question isn't whether you're eating protein. The question is, are you eating the right kind of protein? For your body's current needs, I want you to meet Arthur. He's 72, a retired engineer with hands that once drafted blueprints for bridges. Arthur has something many of us have: a space that used to bring him joy. His garage workshop is a testament to decades of weekend passion. Hand-carved mallets hang in perfect rows, chisels arranged by size, each one sharp and ready. The workbench, worn smooth by years of projects, sits beneath a window that catches the morning light just right, but Arthur doesn't go there anymore. Not really. Oh, he'll walk to the garage for practical things to grab a screwdriver or find the snow shovel. But those Saturday mornings when he'd lose himself in the rhythm of creation, those have become a memory. When Arthur and I first spoke, I didn't ask him the question most people expect. I didn't ask, what can't you do anymore? That question focuses on loss, on limitation, on the slow surrender to time. Instead, I asked Arthur, tell me what you miss. His answer surprised even him. It's not that I can't lift the wood, he said, his voice carrying the weight of quiet disappointment. It's that I hesitate. I stand there, looking at a piece of oak that I've lifted 1,000 times before, and I pause. I question whether I should. And in that moment of hesitation, something dies. The joy gets buried under doubt. Arthur's story isn't unique. It's the story of the gardener who stops tending to roses because the thorns seem sharper. It's the story of the cook who stops making bread because the kneading feels like work instead of meditation. It's the story of the photographer who stops carrying her camera because it feels too heavy for adventures. The tragedy isn't that we lose our abilities. The tragedy is that we lose our confidence in our abilities. We begin to see our bodies as fragile, unreliable, sources of limitation rather than possibility. But here's what I told Arthur, and what I want to tell you, your body is not asking you to stop. It's asking you to listen. It's asking you to tend to the soil so the garden can flourish again. Arthur's journey, and perhaps yours, isn't about finding a new hobby. It's about reclaiming an old love. It's about hearing the music that never really stopped playing. I didn't give Arthur a diet plan. I didn't hand him a list of restrictions or a complicated regimen. Instead, I said something that changed everything. Arthur, let's not start a diet. Let's start an experiment. There's something powerful about that word experiment. It removes the pressure of perfection. It invites curiosity instead of demanding compliance. It says, we're going to try something and see what happens. For 2 weeks, I told him, I want you to add just one thing to your daily routine, not as a chore, not as medicine, but as an act of tending to your garden. What did I suggest? Parmesan cheese. Real aged Parmesan cheese. I can imagine what you're thinking. Cheese. That's the secret. That's the answer to reclaiming strength and vitality. Let me explain why this matters. Parmesan isn't just cheese, it's time transformed into nutrition. During its long aging process, something magical happens. The proteins begin to break down naturally. They become what scientists call pre-digested, easier for your body to absorb and use immediately. Remember our factory analogy, aged Parmesan is like delivering pre-cut lumber instead of raw logs. Your body doesn't have to work as hard to transform it into strength. I told Arthur, grate a little over your pasta, sprinkle some on your soup, add it to your salad. We're not changing your life. We're just giving your body a tool it can use more efficiently. The beauty of this approach is its simplicity. No complicated meal plans. No dramatic lifestyle changes. Just one small addition. One small act of care. We're just gathering information. I reminded him. We're listening to what your body tells us. Arthur's transformation didn't happen overnight. It happened in moments. So small they were almost invisible. Week 1. He grated fresh Parmesan over his evening pasta, just as I'd suggested. The cheese melted into golden pools, filling his kitchen with that rich, nutty aroma. He ate it mindfully, not expecting miracles, just participating in the experiment. Those first few days, nothing seemed different. He still glanced toward the garage with that familiar mix of longing and hesitation. He still chose the television. Over the workshop, the dust continued to settle on his tools. But somewhere in the middle of the second week, something shifted. Arthur was reading his morning paper when he realized he'd been sitting in his armchair. For over an hour without shifting position, his lower back, usually stiff and complaining by then, felt quiet, comfortable. He stood up, and for the first time in months, he didn't use the armrest to push himself up. He simply stood. His legs carried him effortlessly from sitting to standing, the way they had for decades before. Doubt crept in. Arthur paused, one hand still hovering near the chair arm, confusion flickering across his face. Had he imagined it, he sat down again, then stood up once more, clean, smooth, confident. It was such a small thing, standing without assistance, but in that moment, Arthur felt something he hadn't experienced. In years, trust in his body's capability, trust in the conversation between intention and action. The following Saturday morning, something drew him toward the garage, not obligation, not a task that needed doing, but genuine curiosity. He found himself standing before his workbench, looking at a piece of oak he'd abandoned. It was meant to become a jewelry box for his granddaughter, a project started with enthusiasm, but left unfinished. When doubt began to whisper, without thinking, without the familiar internal negotiation, Arthur reached for the wood. He lifted it, feeling its weight, its grain, its possibilities. It felt right, not heavy, not threatening, just right. His hands found the familiar rhythm of measurement and marking. The smell of wood shavings filled the air. The afternoon light slanted through the garage window, illuminating tiny particles of dust dancing in the golden beams. For the first time in months, Arthur lost track of time, not because he was avoiding something, but because he was fully present in something he loved. When he finally looked up, 3 hours had passed. The jewelry box had taken shape. His granddaughter's name was carved in flowing script along the top. And Arthur was smiling. Strength doesn't always return with fanfare. Sometimes it returns with the quiet confidence of a hand reaching for a familiar tool, of a body that remembers how to move without fear. Later that evening, Arthur called me. I could hear something different in his voice, not excitement, exactly, but a kind of quiet wonder. Dr. Sharma, he said, I think I've been asking the wrong question. What do you mean? I kept asking myself, can I still do this? Am I still strong enough? But that wasn't the real question at all. I waited for him to continue, sensing he was working through something. The real question was, do I still trust myself? And today, for the first time in a long time, the answer was yes. Arthur's voice carried the weight of rediscovery. It was never about lifting the wood. It was about this feeling that my hands and my mind are connected again, that my body and my intentions are having a conversation instead of an argument. He paused, and I could picture him in his kitchen, perhaps looking toward the garage where the scent of fresh wood shavings still lingered. I wasn't fighting my body anymore. I was just giving it what it was asking for, the right fuel, the right care, and in return, it gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Arthur, me. I feel like myself again. Not a younger version of myself, but the truest version. The one who creates things with his hands. Because he can, and because he loves to, Arthur's transformation wasn't magic, it was biology. Let me explain why aged Parmesan was so effective for him, and why it might be the key to your own garden's renewal. During Parmesan's long aging process, sometimes 2 years or more, something remarkable happens. The proteins begin to break down. Naturally through enzymatic action, what emerges is not just cheese, but a source of readily available amino acids that your body can use immediately. Think of it this way. Imagine your muscles as thousands of locked doors, each one needing a specific key to open and begin the repair process. These keys are amino acids, the building blocks of protein. When you eat most protein sources like eggs or chicken, your body receives a handful of blank keys. Your digestive system has to work hard to cut each one to fit the specific locks. It's like having a key-cutting machine that gets slower and less efficient as we age. But aged proteins like Parmesan are different. They arrive at your body's door as a ring of pre-cut keys. Your body doesn't have to spend energy manufacturing them from scratch. It simply needs to match the right key to the right lock. No effort wasted, no energy lost in translation. This is why Arthur felt stronger, not because he was eating more protein, but because he was eating more usable protein. His body could finally access the repair mechanisms it had been trying to activate for months. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. While Parmesan was Arthur's key to renewal, it's not the only key available. In fact, it's not even the most powerful key in our toolkit. At the top of our protein efficiency scale sits something you might not expect: dried fish powder. With 63 grams of protein per 100 grams, it's nearly 5 times more protein dense than eggs. But density is only part of the story. Recent research has shown that the amino acid profile in properly processed, dried fish powder acts like what I call a master key one that can unlock almost any muscle repair door. Instantly, studies have documented strength increases of up to 19% in just 6 weeks when this protein source is added to the diet of adults over 65. This is the power of understanding your body's true needs. It's not about eating more, it's about eating smarter. It's not about restriction, it's about optimization. It's not about fighting aging, it's about supporting your body's natural ability to maintain and repair itself. Arthur's story teaches us that the conversation between you and your body doesn't have to end. It just needs to be conducted in the right language. The language of proper nutrition, the language of understanding, the language of care. Your body is not failing you. It's waiting for you to tend to the soil, so the garden can flourish again. Arthur's story isn't about Parmesan cheese. It's about a fundamental shift in how we approach aging, strength, and vitality. He stopped fighting his body and started listening to it. He stopped treating it like a failing machine and started tending to it like a precious garden. The cheese was just the first seed he planted, but from that single seed grew something beautiful: confidence, trust, joy, the return of Saturday mornings in the garage and the gentle symphony of creation. This is what I want you to understand. The principle is more powerful than the specific solution. The principle is that your body is not your enemy. It's not conspiring against you. It's not betraying you or abandoning you. It's simply asking for what it needs to thrive. When you give your body the right tools, the right nutrition, the right care, the right respect, it responds with gratitude. It gives you back strength. It gives you back confidence. It gives you back the ability to engage with the world in ways that bring you joy. Arthur's transformation reminds us that our best years are not something to mourn. They're not locked away in the past, accessible only through photographs and memories. They're seeds waiting to be planted, gardens waiting to be tended, music waiting to be heard again. The question isn't whether you're too old to reclaim your vitality. The question is, are you ready to tend to your garden? Your garden is unique. What works for Arthur might be different for you. Your soil has different needs, different requirements, different possibilities. So today, I want to give you a complete seed catalog of powerful protein sources, all more effective than the humble egg. Greek yogurt. Think of this as the gentle, all-purpose compost for your garden, rich in probiotics and easily digestible protein. It nurtures your body's foundation while providing the building blocks for strength. Chickpeas. These are your sustained-release fertilizer. High in both protein and fiber, they provide steady nutrition that keeps your energy levels stable throughout the day. Quinoa. This is your complete nutritional toolkit, one of the few plant proteins that contains all essential amino acids. It's perfect for those who prefer plant-based nutrition. Pumpkin seeds, consider these your mineral-rich soil enhancer, packed with zinc, magnesium, and highly bioavailable protein. They support muscle function and recovery. Tempeh. This is your soil-revitalizing probiotic, fermented soy that's easier to digest than regular soy products. It combines protein with gut health benefits. Cottage cheese, your quick-absorbing liquid fertilizer. The casein protein in cottage cheese provides a slow, steady release of amino acids, perfect for overnight muscle repair. Sardines, these small fish are your concentrated nutrient bombs, rich in omega-3s and highly bioavailable protein. They support both muscle and brain health. Hemp hearts. Think of these as your alkalizing soil amendment. They provide complete protein while supporting overall inflammation reduction. Each of these represents a different tool for your garden. Choose the ones that appeal to you, that fit your lifestyle, that make you feel nourished rather than restricted. My invitation to you isn't to follow a rigid plan. It's to begin your own experiment. Look at this catalog of possibilities and choose one seed, just one that speaks to you. Plant it in your weekly routine, not as a chore, not as medicine, but as an act of love. For the garden that is your body. And then, listen, what is your body telling you? How does it respond? What changes do you notice? Not just in your strength, but in your confidence, your energy, your willingness to engage with the activities that bring you joy. Your best years are not something to look back on with nostalgia. They are something to cultivate starting today. They are seeds waiting to be planted, gardens waiting to flourish, music waiting to be heard again. Don't just age, evolve.